A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. I'm right here at the Cannes Lions, and this is the most anticipated interview because it's none other than
say that to all the interviewers,
Martin
Sonali.
Sorrell.
Yeah, they say all of them.
The man who never lets me finish my sentence.
I'm just correcting what you say.
Can't wait to start this interview.
Sure.
You're a Cannes veteran, but in your new avatar,
Yeah.
has it been a different experience for you this time?
No, it's been the same. I mean, it's been hectic. We had, I think, between Media Monks and Mighty Hive and S4Capital and the joint meetings, we probably had about 100 meetings in the last 6 days, actually. So it's gone extremely well. A lot of interest in the model, which is this first-party data. Yeah, the Holy Trinity, first-party. We've got well-trained first-party data, content, and programmatic. Assignments assigned, at the table, which is very good and very, very motivating. The issue for us is how do we get scale? Because our largest client last year was about $10 million, two of them. This year, those same clients will be 20, but we want, total, the revenue market's looking for about $225 million of revenue as opposed to 150 last year. We're growing at about just under 50% in the first 4 months of the year, 45%, including currency, and excluding the effect of currency, 41%. So it's strong growth. We said we want to double the size of the company organically, not excluding acquisitions, in 3 years. So what we're seeing is the model that we're talking about has a lot of traction. I think the propensity, it sounds a bit highfalutin, but the propensity of clients to experiment, given the changes that are taking place in the industry, whether they be the platforms, the software companies, the consultants, or in-housing, or taking back control, because I've compared this to Brexit and taking back control. Clients want to take back control.
Yeah,
They've reduced their resources inside their company because of the cost pressures. They've seen the walled gardens go up, so they're worried about maintaining that direct-to-consumer relationship. All that, plus agencies, like WPP, are worried about incumbency. They're worried about losing business. And WPP, in 1 week last year, lost 8 pieces of business in 8 days, and that has a traumatic effect. I mean, as the financial director said, the revenue was going down so fast that they couldn't deal with it. So these are changes which are very fundamental, and the clients seeing this and looking and reacting to the changes. It can be privacy, it can be brand safety issues, all these things are very consumed. So our wholly digital model, which is where the growth is, where we're seeing still significant growth, 20%, 40% of budgets out of the $500 billion $200 billion goes to digital. Google dominates $125 billion of that, Facebook 52, Amazon 12, and of course in China, Alibaba and Tencent are the market. So all these changes have put tremendous pressure on the clients, and I think, fundamentally, it's the law of unintended consequences. When we built those agencies at WPP, those teams around the clients, they sort of felt, in a way, as though they were being squeezed. It was unintended. What we were trying to do is to build services for them, for Ford with GTB, or with Red Fuse for Colgate. But the idea being that we would be able to do everything for them, and it would be constructive. Well, I think there have been some sort of destructive consequences of that. So all these changes, and you see it here at Cannes. I mean, if there's one thing I come away with at Cannes is, CEOs and CMOs and CFOs and CIOs and procurement officers want them to be more agile and faster. So speed is a competitive advantage, and agility is a competitive advantage. And that in the digital space, as you know, with our model is built for that. And that the traditional legacy businesses, of which the agencies are a part, have got to move into the digital age even faster than they thought. So in a funny way, I think the big puzzle from a narrow industry point of view is, why is Omnicom and IPG doing well?
Exactly. Yeah.
And Publicis and WPP doing badly. And there are 2 possible explanations I can think of. One is that Omnicom and IPG are very strong in America. They're rooted in America. John Wren sits in America. He may sit in New York and Miami or Palm Beach or whatever it is. Michael Roth sits in New York. So they're in the heart of they're there 24/7. And under Trump, America has got stronger from an economic point of view. Even got better. So That's sort of one possible explanation. The other possible explanation is that both Publicis and WPP have gone to the sort of going towards the one brand route. Publicis faster. They may destroy value. Y&R may disappear, and JWT may disappear, and Saatchi's and BBH, Leo Burnett, and Razorfish and Rosetta under Sapient. Digitas may and LBI may disappear, but maybe in the long term, maybe that unification into one brand. Well, they got mixed signals here. Got WPP taking a beach, and you got Mediacom, which is agency of the year, still having its own suite in the Martinez. I mean, you can see the tensions between the two. I think that there are other WPP companies that add other sites. So there's this sort of suggestion they're unifying it, but on the other hand, you've got all these alternatives. So you probably doubled the cost this year. The heart of the WPP's problems, and I would argue Publicis' problem as well, is in the United States. So sitting in Paris or sitting in London doesn't do it.
So would you say the quick fix is to move headquarters?
It's not a quick fix because, they haven't even moved out of Farm Street. They talk about moving out of Farm Street, but actually there's the Berkeley Square group there that are sitting there isolated while the rest of the holding company have moved into to Sea Container House. So there's a sort of two nations inside the holding company. One sort of dispirited nation has been left behind. They've been left behind. A bit like the voters feeling as though they've been left behind. No, it's about the people in the US. It's about making sure that the quality of the people is at the highest level. And Omnicom and IPG may have the advantage here. IPG may have an advantage that McCann is strong and consistently does well, and they've pulled it together. It's like a mini IPG inside an IPG, and so maybe it's more easy for them to run.
But would you say that you have this insight from an outside-in perspective now that you're outside the system?
The further you get away, I was talking to another person who left WPP, and a lot of them are doing that. And he said, you get away from it and you see it a better perspective. I mean, we hired Scott Spirit, and we've had a flood of CVs in from WPP. I mean, clearly there are big issues.
You've also made a statement that your successor is doing many things wrong.
Sorry, the what?
Your successor is doing many things wrong.
Look, it's easy to criticize. It's very difficult to do, and that's been said in much more eloquent phrases. Roosevelt's phrase, I think it was. Theodore. I think it's very difficult. But you do see things. I mean, Globant was a nonsense. I mean, selling that stake, which came by hard graft, and the Argentinians who run Globant are superb. Digital transformation is key to WPP, and you sell 20% of the company, a unique position in a unique company at $52, and last time I checked, it crossed 100, and that's in a few months. It's $200 million down the drain. So I don't understand the WPP healthcare thing. I mean that putting healthcare into the agencies that they'll just drift away. That's $500 million of revenue. Just sort of, I think, will just disappear because there's not enough focus. Putting Wonderman and Y&R together, I think with JWT together might make some sense. But if you put JWT last, it falls off the table. And similarly for VML Y&R, I would have done that. We were doing that when I was leaving. But I think you put Y&R first. I mean, I was in Argentina and Brazil, and people said to me, "Who's VML?"
Yeah, for sure.
And I said, "Well, it's a digital agency that started in Kansas City, but in Brazil and Argentina, Y&R means something."
So I'm curious to talk about your very, very recent acquisition, which you made in Australia.
Yeah, this morning.
Bistec.
Yeah.
This morning, yes.
Yeah.
Tell me why that company and how does it fit in?
I think we've described to you our ecosystem, the platforms.
Yep.
The three, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Alibaba, Tencent in China, Microsoft, Apple, so the seven sisters or whatever, the fearsome five, the seven sisters. And then you add in three other software companies, because Microsoft's a software company, of course. Adobe, Salesforce. Those are the other companies
to look out for.
Adobe and Salesforce and Oracle are the three other companies, the 10 companies that we're focused on. There are others. Salesforce, it goes beyond Salesforce to SAP. It goes to IBM. There will be new ones like ByteDance and TikTok and everything that will have to come into that system. But broadly, Snap seems to be making a little bit of a run, $1.5 billion or thereabouts ad revenue. So it's changing. It's changing. But no, I think it's just a reinforcement of our strategy. What we're trying to do is build relationships with the platforms. And this is a company that uses Adobe software with our clients and some of our clients and with other clients where we think there's an opportunity to develop a business.
When are we going to see some movement in the Indian market? I know you've set up.
Well, Poran has set up, and we're set up now in Bangalore, and we're going to head. So that, as far as I'm concerned, the sooner the better, because I think it's good news that Modi has been re-elected with a margin. You have to tell me, with a margin more than people expected, the pundits expected,
despite all the data and analytics.
Yes, and well, we've seen that with Brexit. We've seen that with Trump. So I think that's good news for India, if I can be so bold. And I have high hopes of another second term. There's no limit, if I remember rightly, on what can happen. So we have to see what happens at the end of the second term. But I think basically, it's good. It's good news. And obviously, I'm very worried about what's happening in China. Not because I don't think that they'll reach some sort of trade agreement. I think they will. There's too much to lose, I think, for both sides. But I worry about the undercurrents. This competition. I don't think in America business people disagree with the need to get a more even playing field. Tariffs are an issue, and the president has taken the right view on that. That IP is an issue, and then we need a level playing field on that. But the consequences are quite severe. You had Apple, I think, last night writing another note to the president saying that tariffs are going to damage their business. I met one businessman here who's in the hardware business who's relocating his Chinese production into Vietnam and Thailand and Mexico. So people are looking now for alternate supply chains. So one interesting thing, I had a conversation with a motor car manufacturer. I said, well, given what Brexit's happening, what would be if politics was not an issue, where would be the best place to go? And he said, amazed me, it was America, it wasn't China. And he said the reason is it's not about labor rates anymore, it's about supply chain and efficiency of the infrastructure, and America scores on that basis. So, President Trump might have something on that too.
But you haven't told me what's the kind of timeline where we'll see some kind of movement.
The answer is all these things, Sonali, is as soon as possible.
Like 2019?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but we're trying to get going as quickly as we can. But, we've got a lot on our plate.
Of course.
And, we have limited resources.
Yes.
But we have to make the best of what we got. But, business is growing in the first 4 months of the year by top line.
And we're also not as sophisticated a market as yet.
No, but we have to work out our positioning there. I think, I've said this to you before, transparency in the media market is a big opportunity. I think digital content is a big opportunity. If you're acquiring companies in India, they're expensive. And Indian entrepreneurs are very good negotiators, and they place, they look at market values and assume,
absolutely.
Whatever the size of the company is.
So do you have a sense now, after speaking to all stakeholders of this industry, as to what's the likely outcome of all the confusion we've seen in the last few years and the current confusion?
I think because of what happened post-Lehman and GDP growth and lack of inflation and price pressure.
And we've never recovered from that.
Well, I think I was talking to a group of 35 clients just now, and many of them packaged goods clients, and they were saying they don't see the volume growth. Yeah. Actually, one of them said to me, given our career pattern, what should we do? Because they're saying, packaged goods volume growth is going to be low, even if you manage to. We were talking about the millennial brands that capture 2 or 3 or 4%. Even if you do that, that's not sufficient to counterbalance the pressure on the brands. And I said, well, look, there's enough in the millennial thing to play, but of course the advantage of the technology are showing through. You look at the GAFA, Google, Alphabet, Facebook and Amazon, you look at those, and you look at Alibaba and Tencent, and you look at, some of the IPOs that have been taking place, even in to some extent, a difficult market. But essentially, this is causing great turmoil. I think what I see happening is a tremendous propensity to experiment, speed being the key, not the key, a competitive, and agility being a competitive necessity. CEOs saying we want to be more agile, their organizations maybe not catching up. The legacy companies really trying to transform themselves rapidly as yes, I think they will.
Wow.
They will try. They will try. But the trouble is listed companies, family controlled companies, private companies control companies like the tech companies with controlling shares. I think for all the criticism, about these controlled companies, they can afford to take the long-term view. And, people say Mark Zuckerberg shouldn't be controlled Facebook. I beg to disagree. I think my bet would be he would make the better long-term decisions. The same for the two people running Google, or effectively controlling Google. I think they, in the long run, will make the best decisions. So I'm not as concerned about that. But and the private equity sector, which raises probably about $500 billion a year and has leverage of 2.5, so about a total of $3 trillion a year. So it's quite a significant share of the marketplace. The listed sector is shrinking because of buybacks and delistings. The private equity sector, the average holding period is 4 or 5 years. So can you take the long-term view? The average life of the CEO listed company is 5 years, or whatever it is, 6 years. So can you take the real long-term view? Maybe they take too shorter-term review. That's the key issue. And then, because of quarterly performance, the pressure is on not to take the write-offs and not do, if you were private, I think the acid test is, if you were private, would you do things differently? Which I'm thinking back on WPP, if it was private, I think I would have done things differently. I would probably be more aggressive. You remember Nielsen went private. David Calhoun left GE to run Nielsen and did a brilliant job of reshaping Nielsen privately. And then they refloated it. It's now fallen back to where it was before the IPO. Before. I think it's lower than the IPO price. I've checked that, but it's certainly around that price. So the market price has gone from $55, $60 down to, I think it's 23, 24. So what you've seen a sort of cycle. Company was public, goes private, goes public again, and probably will go private again. Two companies did I think put bids in for Nielsen recently. So interesting sort of cycles that companies go through.
So when I met the consultancies this time, and one of course was Accenture Interactive with their very expensive buy with Druga 5.
Yeah.
Before I even asked my question, what did you make of that acquisition? Because there's been so much commentary.
Well, I said perfect fit, but there was a little bit of irony in that, which seemed didn't play well. I mean, look, it's an attempt to combine Mad Men with Maths Men. I think, one of the platforms said to me that, Brian Whipple can now go to a CEO and say we're creative. I'm not sure I buy that. I'm not sure I buy the culture, the culture of cultures. I don't know how you unify a Droga with a Monkeys, with a Sina Schrader, with a Cole Rebbe, with a Karma Rama. I mean, it's not just with a Shackleton. It's not just, or Fiord. There's just a lot of them. They're all in different countries, different places. So in other words, you're going down the same rabbit hole in a way or the same problem line that the advertising holding companies have.
How is
they're doing it? They're doing it at a scale because they're 115 billion market cap, which is more twice what if you added all the holding companies together. It's twice. They have 477,000 people. So it's very different. Even Accenture Interactive has 22,500 people. I think they claim 8,500 of revenue.
Exactly, and they're claiming they're very, very profitable.
8.5 billion. Sorry.
They're claiming they're very, very profitable. And my question is...
Well, I don't know whether they're very, very profitable. And their margins, I think, about 16 or 17%, which is overall. We don't know what the divisional is.
Yeah.
But, it was interesting. When I said to Brian at the Drum, you paid 466 for Droga5, which you can see from what happened. You can see it from the Endeavour prospectus, because Endeavour had half the company, got $233 million for their half share in the company before the escrow. That's and a company which I think was suffering. I mean, Droga is superb, and maybe apart from Wyden and Kennedy, the two best quotes independent agencies. But the point about Droga is it's gone from being independent to non-independent, and it's part of its differentiation. And some of the client meetings we've had here, they've heard from within the company. People are puzzled because David always talked about independence, and his key differentiator was independence. But at the end of the day, the almighty dollar speaks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This time, twice with WME first, and then.
Yeah. Well. Interestingly, what's really interesting, Ari Emanuel is very shrewd, and he didn't pick up his option.
Absolutely,
now,
which is why the sellout happened.
Yes, exactly right. So he had 49% with an option on 51 by August of last year if they went public. So maybe the issue was he couldn't go public at that stage. He's now gone public, a year or so later. So they missed that boat. In which case, if both wanted to do it, you would have thought they could have extended the option for another year. But for some reason, it didn't happen. Maybe Ari saw 200 revenue going to 170 or whatever happened, and came to the view that the values, they would be better off without it. But it is an interesting point.
Let me ask you a hypothetical question.
Hypothetical question.
Yes.
Dangerous to ask. Politicians say, I never answer a hypothetical question.
If you were still the CEO of WPP,
yeah,
what would you be doing?
Well, we set a course. We called it horizontality. This word has been banned. But, I think that's what it is about. I mean, there are too many silos. Maurice Levy said, you've got to get rid of the silos, and he's right, but because it's a painful thing to do. And my judgments might be slightly different. Directionally, move to one company. One of my partners, Victor Knapp at MediaMonks, goes around the world photographing the front door of Publicis on the offices, and so it's power of one, and then you have 11 brand names. So we have a library of photos. So it's like the beach. The beach is WPP, and above the beach you've got MediaCom with its suite. So when does it become one? But because you're dealing with individuals now, the individuals are often very good, and very good people tend not to cooperate. They tend to say, I know best. I want to get on with it, and sometimes you have to go with the flow. So you have to negotiate. It's like I was saying about changing account management on key accounts. It cannot be done overnight.
It is a people's business.
It is a people business. So it is gradual. It is gradual. I remember Maurice Sarchi talking way back about, in our businesses, you have to compromise. And there was one acquisition situation. It was a very interesting situation. He said, and he backed off. And I said to him, why did you back off? It's a very famous agency. And he said, he didn't think if we got into trouble, and he went to the principals of the agency and said, we're in trouble, will you help us? That he wouldn't, as he put it, have moral blackmail, which may have been a crude way of putting it, but I knew what he means. So it is a question about balance. And you can't do it by spreadsheet, and you can't do it by sitting in London. I don't think you would still, it's very difficult to run a global business with the strength of the US economy. And if I look at the world, what's exciting at the moment? US, Latin America, I like because the inflation gives you a little bit of flexibility. Asia Pacific, Japan is a tough market because of the dominance of Dentsu and Hakuhoda. Australia is a little bit flat at the moment, but the stuff in between is doing okay. I mean, China, question mark. With Google and Facebook, I think their second largest profit pools outside the US are outbound China. So it's the Chinese companies that are expanding abroad. Haier, Lenovo, Xiaomi, or whatever it happens to be. Huawei now becomes a special case. So it's a world which you have to navigate. So it's very, very difficult.
I'm sure I'll see you very soon.
Hopefully. All right, Sonali, thank you very much, as always. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.